Thank you, everybody, and thank you to PRA for the invitation. So, Australian Horizons Foundation has long wanted to find a way to be able to support education of people in the rural sector, not just in terms of school leavers, but certainly in terms of adults who are really in a position to be able to try and advocate for not just their industry, but certainly the rural sector, and indeed, I think personally, it's actually Australia's way of life. So we face huge challenges when it comes to advocating for our sector. There's so many different interest groups, as you alluded, and as we've heard over the last couple of days, there are so many issues, and sometimes it does seem overwhelming. But as we all know, education is the key. So education for young people is the key for them to be able to make choices and decisions as they, go through life and take their place in the world. And we really want to be able to help them build and have some confidence and restore a little bit hope in the future. So I come from a farming family, just a little bit of my background. Grew up on the Monero in New South Wales and in fairly severe and numerous droughts, hence the reason I'm short, because I never got rained on while I stood in the cow paddock. But my family were involved heavily in the community, as most rural families are. And my dad had grown up and was born in the city, but all he ever wanted to do was farm. His favourite uncle was Uncle Jack out of Corindai. But his family, his own parents, had always said to him, if you don't like how something's going, don't just whinge about it, actually get in, get involved and do something about it. Learn about why it's happening like that, and then what you might need to do to effect some change. So Australian Horizons Foundation was formed in Georgetown as part of a natural resource management body, which was the Northern Gulf Resource Management Group. So it was one of the most probably advanced and probably one of the most sound NRM bodies in the country at the time, and particularly under the helm of Nolene Icahn. So many of you would be familiar with that name, particularly in Queensland. So what we found was there was a decline or a drop in uptake and participation in NRM programs, and it led to the question like, why? What's going on? Some of them were really useful, they were really sensible, they were grounded in what the community needed, but people weren't participating. So of course we looked at the circumstances where we had significant and numerous droughts, fires, floods. We had the wet drought for 18 months where everything was inundated, and then of course bovine Jones disease, quarantine, and then just to put some icing on that cake, we had that wonderful perverse punitive policy overnight that shut down the live export industry across northern Australia. So we found families that had piles and piles of envelopes with windows on them that were unopened, people that didn't have food in their cupboards, they weren't going to town because they had money at the supermarket or at the fuel station or the roadhouse, kids being pulled out of school. So the impacts were huge, but because it was such a sparsely populated area, they weren't really felt as quickly or as rapidly as they might if it was in a more densely populated area where it was happening to a large portion of that population. So one of the solutions that they came up with and that we developed was actually a charity within the organisation, and we did some charitable works, but we knew that at some stage or another we would actually need to separate those two entities so that they could actually undertake their roles fully and really concentrate on what their priorities were. So we separated out in 2015. By 2016, the Australian Horizons Foundation was a fully fledged and independent charity in its own right, and the Northern Gulf Resource Management Group was free to pursue what it needed to do. So we know what the purpose of the bursary is. We're very honoured and feel very privileged that we're able to partner with PRA because we're not limited to just Northern Australia. Our board would like to be able to consider how we can help further for a bursary similar to this to be available in the southern part of Australia. We want to be able to benefit the whole nation.